Hi, welcome to another Typology interview. We have Garrett. How's it going, Garrett?
Hey, how's it going? Doing
Hey.
pretty well.
So this is really cool because we did two other interviews with your exact type. We did Otim and Chris, and you're another twin type with them. Like I guess you guys are triplets.
Yeah,
Yeah.
triplets from another, not mistress, but mother, I guess.
From whatever. Yeah, from the cognitive side at least.
Yeah,
But so I was talking to you a little bit before. Do you identify with them? Do you feel like they are your twin types, or do you feel like you're a little bit different in some way? Or
I don't know if I have a good enough sense of them as people I have like snippets, I guess, of interactions that maybe like I was like, well, maybe, I don't know if I'd come across like that. Because I've asked a bunch of questions in we were just talking about the Facebook group we have.
right? Yeah.
For our type. Like, who knows? Like, maybe there'll be another one, but right now it's just us three. But there have been snippets where I've seen like things. Like the first thing I mentioned was like, well, we all essentially majored in psychology or neuroscience in college. You know, so
That's really cool. Is you did something you did a bachelor's in cognitive science, which is like completely relevant to the discussion. So that's cool.
Yeah. It's like it was a mixture of like neuroscience and cognitive science. That's the brain part, and then But it is very relevant. I mean, that's kind of why I chose the major. It's just because, and we talked about this as well. That like it was like what I guess the one of the initial reasons was like I wanted to understand consciousness.
Right.
Because like the hard problem, like essentially like as far as I can tell, I had the hard problem question in my head before I actually knew it was like a objective or a collective thing.
Right.
So I had that question. I was like, I want to kind of figure that out. But also I started getting into typology and started getting more interested in understanding myself. And long story short, a major in neuroscience or cognitive science isn't necessarily the best way to do that. But it gives you I guess it gives me some tools to
definitely
mess around with. Yeah.
And it gives you credibility as well.
Yeah, a little bit at the bachelor's level, and then if we go on to get a PhD or whatever, then even more. But yeah,
for sure. Yeah.
But I actually forget your initial question. I don't know if you remember. We went off on a tangent a bit.
I think we're doing okay.
All right.
Yeah. I want to know what your history was before you got into your degree and stuff in typology.
Okay. I guess those are two separate questions. History in general, like I guess So
no, history and typology. History and
Oh, in general or typology?
Yeah, in typology specifically. Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
So I was, for like most people, I would assume it was the 16 Personalities website.
Okay.
That my freshman roommate knew about and introduced me to. I got ISTJ on there. That was the first time.
Oh wow! All right.
Now when I get ISTP,
wow.
Pretty consistently, which is actually interesting. Like I've taken it, like I'll just go back because it's like a quick test. You know, I've taken it probably like 20 times.
That's interesting because Chris said he was getting INTP consistently.
Huh.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, if you know how that stuff works, it's an offshoot of the Big Five, really. So what they're doing is they kind of rebalance the scales to make it into like some sort of not pseudo typology, because they kind of try to use traits, but it's weird. I don't know. They're doing their thing.
They're doing their own thing, yeah.
Yeah. But that's how I got into typology. I mean, I've been all over the map with it, really. I can't really think of, like, even Enneagram stuff as well. I can't really think of a corner of the typology internet except for Podlayer, if you know what that is.
Go ahead.
No, it's like this, like they're almost like like there's a lot of people saying that they were like kind of culty. I don't know. I don't want Podlayer people coming after me or whatever.
Can you spell it? What is it? Podlayer?
Yeah, POD_LAIR. LAIR.
Check it out.
Yeah. Yeah. apparently they like kind of get kind of intense with it, but it's
Right.
visual. It's like a cognitive type or Voltology, if you know those guys.
Okay.
So as they look at you and they're like, okay, you got these functions based on your face.
Right. Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Anecdotal completely. Yeah.
Well, I wouldn't say it's anecdotal as much as it's just visual, because they have like they have documents of like or they have like a track of like all the people. I looked at I think a new website they had up, but it's kind of like yeah, it's just visual stuff. It's not like based on like you said this, which I guess that would be more anecdotal, you know,
Yeah.
because like your face is like that's your biology kind of speaking. And
Yeah, the
there's
thing is, there's always going to be like exceptions though with that. Like, there's, I don't know.
I guess yeah, I mean I don't yeah.
Because
I
like
don't
if
know.
we took Chris and we took you, like the face isn't the same.
Right. Yeah. It's just yeah. They have their own method. Anyway, that's kind of getting I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
like that was the one that I hadn't actually looked at that much. But yeah, I've been like all over the map with it, like Enneagram stuff, all the different Jungian derivatives,
Cool.
you know.
So do you identify with the fact that your lead function is NI?
That's kind of tough for me to see because um it's supposed to be like, well, it depends on how you interpret it. Known information, right? I personally,
Known concepts.
yeah, known concepts, and then in the case of NI, known facts. Like, I definitely have a register of information,
Right.
but in terms of stuff that I actually believe and accept as truth or or not necessarily reality, but just things that I think are valid. How about that?
Right.
That's very difficult for me to form. Like, I have a very tough time coming across things or ideas that I see as true in general.
Do you think that's because maybe it's feminine? 'Cause it's hard to solidify that?
Possibly, but I feel like it's not like I have like a nebulous idea. It's like, well, reality's kind of like this, or these are my abstract ideas about reality. I don't really have that. And I was talking with Shannon, and she said that and she gave an example of like, because Dave also has feminine NI first.
Right.
And she was giving an example of, and I guess this might have been NI plus something else, or it might have just been NI, but she said it was like, he'd look into the future, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but it's going to be something, there's something like chaotic that's going to happen in the next 24 hours, something like that.
Right.
That was her description of his feminine NI in working, essentially.
Right. Okay.
And I heard that knowledge of like, I don't have any idea like what's coming down the pike.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So I don't know. That one's harder for me to see.
Are you afraid of the chaos?
Maybe I think the chaos has like a negative connotation.
Uh-huh.
In general, I think I'm not. This is something also I should mention is that like the whole uncertainty that I mentioned a bit earlier. I think that's feminine something.
Yeah, like
Because it's kind of like it might. Yeah, I don't know where it is, but
yeah.
like feminine something. But were you gonna say something?
Yeah, the uncertainty would be like the chaos. That's what the uncertainty is. It's like, do you feel like the chaos is coming? Like pretty soon there's going to be something chaotic at all times, and you're always trying to be ready for it?
No, I don't think so. Yeah. I can see like I guess we can go to like stuff that I maybe have a better understanding of.
Right.
Because like I did mention earlier, I don't have like a very solid understanding of a lot of the parts.
Well, it doesn't matter. Like, first of all, I really appreciate the honesty, because like this is what I'm looking for, not like someone who understands the parts, you know, someone who's just able to speak about themselves and know themselves.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, and even if you don't understand the parts, as long as we're talking and we're trying to figure out what your type is, like that's really what we're going for here. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I don't know. So I guess you can ask, like, so is that enough? Like, what else? Do you have any more questions about my experience with order
Your
and
NI,
chaos.
yeah, I'm trying to zone in a little bit on your NI. Do you find that you form conclusions quickly about, like, given a little bit of sensory data, and you're able to really pick up on conclusions quickly, even if they're wrong?
I don't think so, but I think I can give a bit of information about my own subjective experience. And I've talked on the phone with Shannon about this as well. It's a lot of the question, how do you know, directed at me. So I'm very, very, like, I'm not always like this, but there can be like certain days where I get like very intensely skeptical or skeptic or doubtful
Okay.
in terms of like, how do you know very simple stuff? Like, how do you know you're hungry? How do you know you're, if you are hungry and you conclude that, how do you know that, like, if you go upstairs and you eat, that's like a good decision? Like,
Uh-huh.
you're eating, what if you eat something unhealthy and that causes a problem later? You
Right.
know, like, how do you know it's just like, it can be, how do you know? It can be like, what really happens is I'll have a conclusion or a thought, and that thought will be there, and then it'll get questioned, and in whatever form suits the nature of the thought that it was. So that can emerge as like, how do you know that? It can emerge as, is it that? It can emerge as, should you that? But it's always like a, wait, I'm uncertain, or I don't have enough information, or something like that.
Uh-huh.
It's like, because when they talk about intuition is like making, essentially it's extrapolation.
Right.
I've seen it almost, not really both ways. I've only seen it really as like, I have really hard time a really hard time extrapolating or allowing myself to extrapolate or guess.
Huh.
That's how I've seen it, at least.
That's more consistent with someone who's maybe even lead SE, I would think, because like, not enough data. Is that what you feel like? You don't have enough data to extrapolate yet, and you always need more data?
I need more. It's either more data or like more certainty,
More certainty.
or more certainty, or more better data. Maybe that might be it, because it's like, I don't know how to work with. There's some certain times where I feel like I don't have not enough. It's not like I need more. It's just like this stuff in general just isn't reliable. You know.
Oh, so it's like a distrust of the data.
Yeah.
Even if you had like a perfect data, you would still distrust it?
Yeah, because it's like, I'm fallible is the thing.
Uh-huh.
Like, it's not like who knows? Like, maybe all this data is all I need, but like, it's something like, I know I've been wrong in the past, and I could be wrong.
Uh-huh.
Again, I've been convinced of things in the past that have turned out to be incorrect, or like false or something.
Right.
Something along those lines. So it's like, why couldn't that happen with anything else? And that's not like all the time, but I can really get deep into that some days.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing that. What about your TI a little bit? Do you like to parse? Do you like to look at bang logical blocks?
I don't know if I like to do it. It's just something that
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I spend a lot of time. I can see that more clearly.
Yeah.
I can see T more clearly because, I mean, I'm literally trying to just figure out. I spend a lot of time trying to figure out, when I'm not trying to figure out like what to do, what my next step should be. It's like the whole thing about trying to find something that fits. Like, that's what typing yourself is, right? I mean, I've spent a lot of time working on that, essentially trying to just find how the puzzle not make the puzzle piece fit, but find the concept, or concept in the sense of like a type that like fits my experience or my life.
Fits
I
the
guess.
data then. Yeah, fits the SE.
Yeah, I thought of it. Yeah, I thought of it like that before. That I'm trying to like unify like the concepts and the
Uh-huh.
reality together.
So you're trying to do the double observing is what you're trying to do. You're trying to
That
unite.
makes sense. That would make sense.
Right.
Yeah.
And is that like a big struggle for you to do that? Is that like you feel like that's a life struggle to make those two unite?
it's weird because I don't know how it would have manifested before I got into typology.
Right.
Because, and maybe it does just kind of emerge after a certain point. It's not always there. Um, but yeah, I don't know if it's a life story. It's definitely been like, because like I should also preface this by saying that like I like the whole uncertainty thing, like that's always like, whether or not I actively engage it, it's always kind of there underneath.
There. Uh-huh.
So I should preface this by saying that like I'm not convinced of like anything, like including like the reality of this system or any typology system in general.
Right.
It's just like I'm trying to understand myself, and I'm using any tool I can to.
Yeah,
That's kind of a
man.
closer.
Same here.
Yeah, yeah. That's
the whole
kind
point
of
of doing interviews.
yeah. I actually was thinking of doing a project a little bit like this, where I did this is also good information. So I've gotten like what, probably like 12 distinct different types from like services like OPS, like Voltology or Cognitive Aid, or those ones. And I compiled them all into a spreadsheet, and I did some statistics on them, and I can essentially show which like results are most statistically significant.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, like what I would want to do is I would want to look for like a bunch of different people that have like a solid amount. And I've done this a bit. I don't know if you've seen my post on the group, but I've done this a couple of times with people. But I would like to get like a group together of people who have gotten typed from like a bunch of different sources.
Okay.
And like, okay, well, this, like for me, I would come out as INTP and in like socionics and in regular typology.
Uh-huh.
So what I would do is like, okay, let's say that I'm an INTP. Let's say this person's a whatever. Like, and then we get groups of people together, and we could separate them by like, okay, all the introverts, you go into this group, all the extroverts, you go into this group, and now let's see like how you guys are similar and how you guys are different. And I do like interviews or something like that to figure it out. But
yeah, it sounds like a cool project. But like,
yeah,
it's you're trying to unite outside sources, like outside typing, and say that do the same sort of thing, like double blind, but you're doing double blind between several different sources.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And you can actually compile those and get like a statistically significant trend in the data, essentially. Because
what I personally would like to see is people who aren't being trained by Dave and Shannon, but people pairing up and doing the double blind testing and trying to get the same result as well. Aside from them, like not trying to get the same result as them, but trying to get the same result as each other.
yes.
And then once those two people are completely in sync, then you can compare between them and Dave and Shannon, and then you'll then you start seeing like OP against OP sort of thing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's a really good idea.
Yeah. Because like we don't know how much bias is there, like, and then yeah.
Right, it's the precision versus accuracy video they made, where like they know for sure that they're getting like over here and the bullseye's here, but they don't know. I mean, they could be like they're getting the same result, but they don't know.
Yeah.
I think a really good way to think about what they've been able to accomplish is that they have the same definitions.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, I don't know if that's the whole story, but I think you can say that pretty confidently about what they've done.
So tell me something. Are you looking for the truth, or are you looking for what works?
Funny answer to that. I'd say that those are kind of related because I've thought before about this, and I don't know how accurate it is, but it's essentially that when you find the truth, it should give you some leverage against reality.
Right.
You know? Uh-huh. So essentially, if I have a type and I'm like, well, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense, this makes sense, like, can you do anything with it?
Right.
Well, if you can't, then how do you verify, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I guess.
So I guess maybe if I'm saying that like truth is what works, then probably what works.
What works. Okay. So you think the truth and what works are the same thing?
I think that's how you figure out what the truth is if it
Uh-huh.
works, because how else do you verify it?
You know, that's a consistent answer with TE users that I've been interviewing.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, because what's your opinion on the energy versus information animals? Because in like specifically the question, this might make it a bit easier, is do you think that the energy animals are only dealing with energetic problems and that the information animals are only dealing with information problems?
Well, okay. My opinion from a different background is that energy and information are the same thing. They're just two ways of looking at the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And the animal system right now doesn't make complete sense to me because I think if you switch the axes, it's one of the things I've been noticing is if you switch the axes, the animals are different. I don't know, they seem to work differently. Like just
Yeah, that makes sense. If you,
NE NI axes, right? So if NE
yeah,
is NI, the animals are different. They work
that
different.
makes sense. They would be, yeah.
So yeah, I don't. So yeah, I'm not really. That's one of the reasons I'm doing all of this stuff is to get more data and figure stuff out a little more. Yeah. But like from what we've been doing, what we've been talking about, you've been really focused on the information here. And like I'm seeing more info dominant from you more than energy dominant.
Yeah, I'd see that all day. Like
Yeah.
that's a big one that kind of trips me up with how they
Right.
have me typed, is because I don't think about like managing my resources or energy or like
Right.
at all, as far as I can tell. I don't necessarily focus on like blasting, but I can see a lot of consume in
Right.
terms of a general, just like learning definition, you know.
I'm also seeing that your blast is probably not last.
Oh,
Yeah. Because like talking to Otim and talking to Chris, their blast is lower than yours.
interesting.
Yeah.
Huh. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's a fledgling field, so there's going to
Yeah.
be some
Yeah.
inconsistencies.
Little hiccups and stuff.
Yeah.
Do you feel like most of your problems are with observer issues, are with control chaos, are with objects rather than with people?
Depends on, well, because the what I'm focused on right now is trying to understand myself,
Mm-hmm.
which I don't know if that's more of a observer or a decider thing.
It's
I would assume it's
yeah.
decider. What did you say?
Yeah, it's an identity thing. It's a DI thing, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, that's my that's what I'm primarily doing in my free time, is trying to understand myself. But it's not.
What's your
But
most traumatic experience? You don't have to say it, but like you're just
oh, sure.
picture your most traumatic experience. Is your most traumatic experience involving someone else, or is it more involving something?
I think I have it. I can even talk about it.
Sure.
Um, so it's the idea of like mortality. You know,
Okay.
it's because like I was religious when I was younger, and then essentially like the doubt started.
Right.
The doubt started kind of emerging. Need to actually, I'm sending a text. I'm gonna nothing too urgent, but the doubt started emerging. Essentially, not the doubt, but I was like, it was just this idea that nothing is certain.
Uh-huh.
So that's kind of where religion fell out for me. But what has happened is that that kind of allowed like these issues that I hadn't had to deal with mortality kind of come into the picture. So that's been like my biggest fear for a while. Not so much now, but definitely when I was younger, was just the prospect of not existing. which is kind of silly because you can't experience non-existence, but
Right.
that's something else entirely. But it's just like I said, maybe I did say it right. It's the idea of not existing.
Yeah.
That was kind of traumatic because
The idea of before you were born, or the idea of after you die, sort of thing.
Primarily the second one, but
right.
yeah. But yeah, that's probably it, because I think like I cry myself to sleep about it like maybe for a week before it started to die down. So
okay.
Yeah, I think that's probably most traumatic, I would say. But I mean, I haven't had that many traumatic experiences, I don't think. That's probably up there, though.
Do you find yourself blaming people a lot for the problems in your life?
No, I wouldn't say so.
That's pretty consistent with single observer. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I don't. Yeah, people. Yeah, I don't know. The only thing that I have the only like hiccup I see with that is that like this isn't exactly, because I think it's more like social versus natural concerns. Like the social stuff is for designers, and then like natural things or objects or whatever, nature is like observer stuff. Because, and I guess that kind of makes sense, because what I'm about to say is that the what am I saying? What was I saying? Something about, right. Yeah, I remember now. That I've always had an interest in biology.
Okay.
And like living things, animate systems. And I used to think that maybe observer versus study was like animate versus inanimate.
Mm-hmm.
But that's the only thing I see with that, is that like I've always had this interest in like living things. So.
Well, I can see that there are, like, we've been talking about a lot of observery stuff since we started as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. You haven't really been also talking about people. You haven't even mentioned anyone else in your life. I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds right. That sounds about right.
Yeah. So it does make sense that you would be a single observer. About your thinking, though, I want to zero in a little bit more on your thinking. Do you think agreement is important when coming to a conclusion?
What do you mean by agreement?
If one person is arguing for something and then everyone else is arguing for something else, is it more likely that the other group is completely correct and that the one person who's arguing is just incorrect?
Not necessarily, because I've thought about this too, just that like people have had incredibly incorrect paradigms. Like the collective has had like incredibly incorrect paradigms about things throughout history.
Right.
And it doesn't necessarily mean that the individual is always right, because, you know, there's a bunch of individuals.
Right.
So, and they all have different beliefs. So I don't think the collective is always correct, I think. Yeah. I wouldn't say that.
Yeah. Do you think that if there is something that is true, that the collective should pick up on it and that they should agree on it? Is that important to you? If you find a truth?
Or else, yeah, I think so. Because if not, then where does it can just disappear, right?
Right. Yeah. I can see what you were saying earlier about testing things against reality is more TI with the observer axis, seeing that the SE matches the NI sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I can see maybe TI more. It's interesting though that you picked up on that. You said that it has to work for it to be true, because in reality.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if that's like because I don't think OPS is that deep into like shadow functions yet.
Yeah.
So,
well, for me as a TI user, like something that works might even be false, even though it works. It might.
No, I mean, yeah, and I think that's true too. I think that's also the case that, well, actually, actually, I'm not sure. Maybe I'm just agreeing with you because I don't know what I'm really saying. Uh, yeah, because like, yeah, I don't really see how, I can't really see that actually.
Like ancient astronomy, for example. Okay, so the whole picture of ancient astronomy is that everything's revolving around the Earth. Okay, but the models and the diagrams are completely accurate, and they predict the season changes, and they predict where the planets are going to be, and all that kind of stuff. And so, even though it's false, it works.
Couldn't you also say that a heliocentric model just works better and explains more and it allows you to do more?
Um, you could say it's true, it's more true, but it not necessarily. Actually, more relevant to us would be the ancient astrology method, because it's more relevant to our perspective. It's more relevant to what we're seeing. It actually works better, especially in astrology and things like that.
So I guess I should maybe like, well, by work, I mean like, does it, by works, I mean like something like a phone, I guess. Like, does it allow you to do things?
Right.
That's kind of what I mean by work. Does it allow you to do more? Can you, if you go through life with this thing as a belief, does it give you more agency in the world? I guess.
Uh-huh. And
Not necessarily does it give you more
and
information.
something can't be true if it doesn't give you more agency.
I mean, if it doesn't, I don't see how you can verify it otherwise.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
You couldn't, but maybe you just couldn't falsify it, but not verify it.
Right. Because, yeah, that's the other thing I run into is because I don't really know how to verify stuff.
Uh-huh.
You know, I don't know how to say, oh, this is true. You know, I've proven it. This is true. I don't know how to say that about anything.
That's the SE there. Okay. So have you grown a little bit in trying to get a hold of your SE? Have you had struggles with your SE? Is there some advice you can give to someone who's trying to get a handle on their SE a little bit?
SE makes me think like of just stereotypical SE definitions, and like I've been a pretty successful athlete. Like I played. I was kind of like, I don't know if I was a walk-on. I don't know exactly how I got onto the team, but I wasn't actively recruited by the. I was recruited by other places, but I wasn't recruited by the school I ended up going to, which is a Division III school.
Okay.
But still, you know, I mean, like that's still something, I guess.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah, for
More than most
basketball,
people.
yeah, for basketball. So yeah, I mean, but I don't know if that's exactly SE.
Yeah, it could be. Do you get the feeling that you're in the zone, or do you always feel like you're distanced when you're playing on the court? Do you feel like you're there, or do you feel like you're sitting back behind your body? And
well, what would end up, I guess, what I can talk about, because the reason I stopped playing was because like I came from like a smaller high school,
right.
so when I went to college, it was like a bit of a adjustment in terms of like the intensity and the competition level. And I was actually getting up to the level. My coaches were saying like, you're getting better. You're getting like closer to everybody else's level.
Uh-huh.
But it was just taking a whole lot out of me. Like I go into practice,
Right.
like a neutral mood. I come out in a pretty sour mood.
Uh-huh.
So I guess that was kind of my experience with at higher level. When I was in high school playing and other times I've been playing, it's just, I'm just there, I guess. I don't think there's like anything in between. I don't notice anything, at least. I've been playing sports my whole life too, so.
Oh, do you find it like draining to be present and in the moment and active, or it's natural for you as well?
That's the other thing. Like with stereotypical MBTI definitions, like of the introvert who loses energy around other people, I've never connected with that.
Yeah, no,
I haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. The yeah. So, but you were saying something else. I think I made a jump and made a
Yeah,
connection.
more about the SE. Do you find it like you have to really struggle to be in the zone? Like it's draining for you. You have to put in a lot of energy and focus to be there.
Physically, like it
Mentally,
wasn't that hard. It wasn't that hard in high school. Maybe that's just because of the competition level.
right?
But no, yeah, I mean, no, I wasn't taxing overtaxing myself then. I don't know what changed exactly what exactly it was when I
Uh-huh.
got to college, but
You have brothers.
little brother, yeah,
Was he also challenging you a lot in the physical domain,
he
or
was
is
trying to. uh, I guess I don't know. He's kind of if you know socionics, I mean, he's got like, I mean, like stereotypically without, it's just SE with him,
right?
socionics SE in terms of like the assertive, aggressive, like competitive stuff like that.
What's the age difference?
3 years.
Okay. Yeah, there could be a little something there, but not enough. Yeah, it's interesting that like you're so in touch with your SE in the sports domain, and then not in the cognitive domain. Yeah.
Yeah. So SE. So yeah, I guess if SE would be sports stuff, because it's is so. I guess your conception of SE currently is more of a
It's more play, but yeah.
it's more play. Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a lot of that. Also, I did improv in college as well.
Uh-huh. Really?
Yeah, and I had to get selected for that. So I mean, uh, that was something I had to get like selected out of a group of people, and I was like one of the few people who got into the troupe from the auditions.
Oh, really? Wow.
So yeah, um, so I'm
Yeah.
decent at that as well. I would assume above
Yeah.
average at least.
What about your consuming? Or do you spend a lot of time learning, taking in information?
Yeah, I mean that's the only way I've come across this many different typology theories,
Right.
which
Yeah.
seems to me more like any consume, but I don't know. That's like a surface
But like
assessment.
it could also be NI consume because it's all the same thing. It's you're still trying to zero in on one thing, like it's all typology, whereas NE would be so many different and vast things.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
it's
so
connected.
and I consume though because it's
Consume that's in
wouldn't that be
service.
SE consume? Oh right. I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I see
Your
what you're saying.
NI needs information in order to form patterns, and you need to go out and consume SE data in order to form those patterns. And you're still working on the same one pattern all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I've seen that too. I've seen that like it's kind of like I'm going over the same concepts but with different facts.
Uh-huh.
Like the same concepts as in it's like it's always like typology, but it's like
Right.
different. Like the details are a bit different.
Uh-huh.
I don't know.
Um, let's talk about your FE a little bit. Are you aware of it? Are you aware of how people feel? Are you a little bit empathic towards others?
Maybe a little. I've been noticing this about myself lately that I mean definitely not like very empathic at all though. I've noticed like as I'm kind of looking for like work and like next steps and stuff like that, I've been thinking more about like how people kind of are in general might be like worse off than I am in terms of opportunities,
Uh-huh.
and thinking about that and being like, oh, that kind of sucks, but like that's about as empathic as I get.
Do you see do other people's troubles make you feel the trouble as well? Like, do you feel pain of other people, like emotional pain of other people when you see them, I don't know, crying or something like that?
No, not really.
No.
Yeah, I would say, I mean, I'll react and try to like do what's appropriate, I guess is probably the most accurate thing to say.
Mm-hmm.
But I won't necessarily feel bad
Right.
for
What
them.
what about the spectrum of values? Are you aware of the entire spectrum of values?
I'm not sure. The way I think about it is the way I've tried to think about it, like the judging axes essentially, is as like, what was it? It was more like if you have FE, then it's like you have not you have, but you're looking like it's more like maybe everybody should be on the same page with
Yeah.
values.
Yeah. Yeah. And values. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or not only that, it's like, this wouldn't be you, but like, let's say you're in a group of people that you know um, think stealing is wrong, and then you go and you steal something in front of them, sort of thing. You'd be aware that you're going against their values.
I see. That's what you're talking about. Going against their values.
Or like, or like with Robin Hood and the Merry Men, so they have a different spectrum of values, and so you can sort of, are you aware of like?
Maybe the reason I'm having trouble answering that is because I'm not aware. You know?
Right.
Because
Okay.
I'm not, because I don't even have like a experience, and I'm really that nothing really clicked when you said that in terms of like an experience. It's like
Uh-huh. What
kind
about
of
your
like
own
that.
personal values? Are you aware of those?
In terms of like preferences, but not in terms of like beliefs. In terms of this is right and this is wrong.
Uh-huh.
You know. Oh, I guess what I was trying to say before is that like when I thought because I still have no idea exactly what's going on with me typology wise, but I flip flopped around. When I flip flopped around between the judging axes, I've thought of when I've been more inclined to say TEFI, it's been because I really don't have I don't feel like I need to have the same values as everybody else or the same. Um,
Right.
I don't feel like I need to agree. We don't need to agree. I don't need to be on the same page as everybody else with respect to values.
Right.
But if I have something logical that I think makes sense and it doesn't make sense to everybody else, then I'm like, well, if I can't, or if it's not provable in reality or something like that, if it's not demonstratable, like it doesn't matter if I like this and other people like that. That's kind of that's how I looked at it in the past.
Yeah, I get the same thing actually, that like I don't need to have the same values as everyone else. I just have to have the right personal reasons to do things. Like it has to make sense on a truth page. And then like sometimes even going along with group values or, is always a way of lying. Like it feels like lying to me. Like someone says, do I look fat? And you're like, no. And the TI is like, yes. And
Right.
my FE is like, don't say yes. Don't say yes. That sort of thing.
Got it. Okay.
So like if someone were to ask you if they look fat and they do look fat to you, like, would you be able to go back and forth or?
I mean, I can't think of a situation where I'd ever say that to somebody unless they were trying to put on weight,
Right. So you would be sensitive to like their FE, like you'd be sensitive to their feelings.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay. Interesting. Anyways, yeah. What about sleep?
And we're conceptualizing that essentially as just conserving energy.
Yeah, conserving energy and zeroing in on a concept as well. Some concept, yeah. Or going over the same concept over and over again.
Let's see. Well, going over the same. Because when I'm thinking to myself, I'm not really going. It doesn't really appear to me that I'm going over the same concept as much as that I'm. Like I said before, just trying to make the puzzle pieces fit. I think that's a good way to think about thinking.
Right.
But yeah, it's not that I'm going over the same concept, trying to understand Well, maybe a little bit. When maybe I'll try to understand a concept a bit with but I guess that's not the majority of what I spend my time thinking about. It's not really that I'm trying to zero in on a concept and I'm like, well, what is NI? I think NI is this. Like, I think that's kind of what you're trying to, you know.
Sort of like NT sort of thing, yeah. Going
Yeah.
name NT stuff, yeah.
Right. That's because that, yeah. Because the way I see it, and the way you conceptualize, I keep on doing this, conceptualize concepts is as patterns or as just abstract information. Because I'm just trying to understand exactly where you're coming from with it.
Yeah. So my personal understanding of NI concepts is something that as soon as you put into words, it loses its original meaning.
Really?
Yeah, its meaning is something sort of beyond words and
Mm.
something that you just understand naturally, and you can go over it without the words, but once you put into words, it loses its meaning somehow. I don't know.
Interesting. I've never thought about it like that. Yeah, I don't even know what that would be. I don't really have a sense of. I literally like think in words. Like when I'm thinking, I'm just talking to myself.
Really?
Yeah, I'm just talking to myself in my head.
Uh-huh.
Like I don't. Yeah, in words. I mean,
Like
not
the
in words.
but the words that you're using, they link to a concept, to some understanding that you have.
Not consciously, you know. Because
Really?
like for me, I'm just talking. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's like you're talking to yourself, but yeah, it's just that's what I do. That's how I think is in words. I just talk in my head, sometimes aloud when nobody else is around.
And you never run into a concept that you have that there's no word for it, or that it's beyond a word? No.
No, like I wouldn't say so.
Interesting.
Yeah, I can't even think of what that would be like.
Okay. Interesting. Well, thanks a lot, Garrett. I really appreciate it. Do you have something to promote, by the way? YouTube channel, music?
Not really. If I make some more posts about that little project I mentioned with the
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know, check it out. If you see a post with a Facebook profile picture that looks like a cross between a squid and a snail, that's me, and I'm asking you probably to help out with that statistical typology project. So yeah, just look out for those.
Sure, yeah, good luck with that. Yeah,
Thanks.
that actually seems like you're using your demons a lot to do that kind of thing. Chris was just doing something like that too, that like,
Yeah, I just saw it.
yeah, it's like difficult to actually go out and do that sort of thing for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
All right.
You find that?
Yeah. Coding is hard.
Yeah.
Coding was like a tough thing for me to get at, and I didn't code until university, and then it was kind of like a system shock, and I had to learn how to. It was something everything else had come more easily to me than that.
All right.
So, yeah.
Cool, man. Thanks a lot, Garrett.
No problem.
We'll have you back maybe for a double interview or something if you want.
Sounds great.
All right. Later.